How did a criminal defense attorney turn a YouTube channel into a revenue machine with millions of views and clients lining up around the block to hire him? Well, I just interviewed Jeff Hampton and he revealed everything. He revealed how he makes videos go viral. He even told me how much money his channel is actually bringing into his law firm, and he showed step by step how he gets serious leads calling him ready to sign. He doesn't even have to sell, they're just ready to sign. There's no fluff, there's nothing held back, and I truly believe that any lawyer who watches this and implements what Jeff said to do can add 7 figures to their firm by this time next year. Do not miss this interview, it's absolutely amazing. Jeff, I did a little bit of research before we came on this call, and I was looking at your numbers and it's pretty crazy, right? So you've got 473,000 subscribers for your law firm's YouTube channel, 224 million views, almost 225 million. You're like about 100,000 away from 225. And you've got 20 videos that have done over 1 million views, right? Which is absolutely insane. I mean, that's something that most lawyers would dream about. But these are just numbers, right? Like, obviously, you're not going to have 473,000 people that are going to hire your law firm. So I want to kind of Tarantino this, right? I want to talk about the end, kind of like what it's like now. And then I want to go back to like, what was it like in the beginning? How did you get started? And then specifically for any lawyer that's out there that wants to build something like this for their firm, literally step by step, how can they do it? Like if you had to do it again. So can you just tell me, like, what has this successful YouTube channel done for your firm with as much information as that you're willing to share, whether it's clients, whether it's even revenue, if you're willing to share anything like that, whatever you're comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear it. I'm sure everybody would love to hear.
Yeah, no. So for me, it's probably the single best thing I ever did for my law firm, because it was during a time, and I talk about this a lot, where people ask me, why did you start this? Well, it was during COVID, and I actually give Bill a lot of credit. I was actually listening to one of his shows that he was doing, a Zoom call that he was doing with everybody. And he talked about taking action and going in a direction that the rest of the crowd's not going. What is everyone else not doing that you should be doing? So I jumped out there and I started creating content on YouTube back in 2020, near the end of 2020, but it's transformed my firm. Now we get 200 to 250 local calls per month for the criminal defense firm, just from the Hampton Law channel. And I mean, that's translated into an extra 2 million plus a year in revenue.
Wow.
Now, and it's because there's so much better calls, right? So like, you can get a lot of cold calling that comes in from ads and stuff like that. And it's great because I believe in ads. I think it's a good thing to do. But we noticed we were closing 25, 35% higher on people who had been watching our YouTube content, and they would refer to it. And that has transformed our business now. So I see it as an integral, just kind of a non-negotiable. I've got to keep the YouTube channel and keep it moving forward because of what it generates for the business.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. It's funny because like I know a lot of attorneys that are successful on YouTube. I don't think any of them are, well, very few of them are as successful as you've been, but even ones that are just around 50,000 subscribers, they've described the sales process more like order fulfillment rather than a sales process. Like, you don't deal with tire kickers anymore. You don't deal with people who are trying to get the best price. You're really talking to people who want to hire you because they've seen you and they trust you. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing. And so the intake team, when people call into the office, we're asking, well, how did you learn about us? And sometimes we don't even get a chance to get that out because we record every call, and people will just say, well, I was watching on YouTube, and they'll even create playlists. The amazing thing is I've had people who I'll go back and listen to some calls, and they all have a playlist of multiple videos that they've watched from the channel, and they'll refer to them and say, how do I get this help? Right? Can you work with me on my whatever case it is, and name what that might be? And that's why, and I know you're going to get into this here in a little bit, that's why it was so important to make sure and cover narrow content where you're really covering areas that are searchable, that people are looking for solutions to, that also align with your practice areas. And they're not going to get millions of views. Those particular videos are not going to get you, 5 million, 6 million views. But I have some that have less than 10,000 views that have made me, 5-6 figures or more on each video.
Yeah, and you've got over 1,000 videos on your channel, I believe.
Yep.
And it's funny because I always look at it kind of like fishing, right? So it's like if you throw a line in the water, maybe you'll catch a fish, maybe you won't. But if you have 1,000 lines in the water, your odds just increased by 1,000 times to catch a fish, And
Right.
especially once you actually follow a little bit of strategy, maybe you use the right bait, maybe you use a better fishing line, all those types of things, then your odds of catching, not just fish, but actually the fish that you're looking for go up exponentially. It's really crazy, right? So let's go back to the beginning, right? So let's say your YouTube channel just disappeared, right? And you had to start over tomorrow. What would you do? Like, what would you tell yourself now that you could, if you could go back to when you started, or like what would you do? What would be your first step? Because there's a lot of people out there that maybe have a YouTube channel and they've never filmed a video, or they filmed 5 videos and each video got 3 views. And I've been there before. But what would you do? Like, what's the Jeff Hampton guide to starting a YouTube channel?
Yeah, and really at the time I didn't really know about or think about this being a blueprint, but I was following a lot of the things that I had understood and learned from SEO on Google, just understanding if I want to rank pages on my website and I want to continue to gain traffic there, what am I creating content about? Because here's the number one problem I find with a lot of people is that they go chasing views. What they'll do is they'll only want to get views. And because they're chasing views, they're creating content about just weird stuff that maybe they'll get views, but it has nothing to do with people ever hiring them. And then you create this, what I call the cardinal sin of YouTube, which is you split your audience, where if you're not careful, you'll end up having videos that you create. For instance, let's say it's criminal defense content that I do. And then I saw a guy do this one time. He's creating content about chicken Parmesan store or restaurants and like I'm crazy stuff that he's putting out there. Yeah. And he's like, well, now when I create content on either one of these things, neither one of them do very well. It's because you segmented your audiences, right? YouTube, the algorithm's confused on who you are. So here's what I would do. First thing I would do is, and I do this all the time when I talk to potential attorneys who reach out to me and say, Jeff, how would you do this? The first thing I would do is look and see what are the areas of practice that I would like to either grow or that make me money now. What are the areas that I know people need help with, right? Then I want to go and find out what is being searched for. So there is going to be a certain amount of practice areas for criminal defense. It's like, I know a lot of mine come from DWI. I get a lot of assault-based calls. We get theft-based. So that's like 80% of what makes up our revenues. So I want to take, maybe that's only like 6 or 7 areas of our practice areas that make us the most money. I want to start there. And then I want to make sure what are the high volume search terms that people are searching for on YouTube and Google. Because if you look at Google's keyword planner, it's going to tell you a lot of what those high volume searches are. I want to know what those are. And I want to make sure I'm now creating content that meets that need. So when you start off, don't just go chasing views. That's the problem. People want to start off saying, how do I analyze the Diddy trial? Right? Or how do I do this? Or how do I jump out there and I'm going to handle some new news event, what I call newsjacking, right? Where you're going to try to jack the news and get a bunch of views. That's going to go like this. It's going to skyrocket and die. What I want is evergreen content that people are going to be searching for years. People are still going to be committing road rage accidents. People are still going to be, committing thefts and things like that, where if it's optimized for search in my locale, in my area, I know I'm going to continue to get calls. And I have that happen right now. I always talk about, there's one of my videos, an aggravated assault video that I refer to. It's got about 19,000 views, but I still get at least 1 sign up a month from it. And that's been for the last 4.5 years.
Oh, wow.
And the reason why is because people are still searching for that. And 85% of my views come from YouTube search for that video.
Yeah.
Which is huge. And if I charge an average case value of $10,000 per aggravated assault, that's paying for itself 10 times over. It's evergreen.
Yeah. And when you think about the value of that, right? So like you said, it was an aggravated assault video. Yeah. Imagine that you wanted to show up on the first page of Google every time somebody searches aggravated assault, and you wanted to just make sure that you get a case every single month from that. Like, how much would you have to spend in Google AdWords? I mean, it would be, at the minimum, hundreds of dollars, at the worst case, thousands of dollars every single month. And you're getting that value for free every single month for 4 years running. And that's just one example. I'm sure you probably have 50 different examples of videos like that get you 1 or 2 videos a month consistently. And yeah, they don't have Mr. Beast numbers. They don't have 150 million views, but who cares? I mean, I'd rather have 10 cases a month from this one video than 150 million views, because at the end of the day, that's really what we're trying to do here. So now you mentioned Google Keyword Planner for figuring out search volume and things like that. Is that the only place that you get ideas from, or where can somebody start? Is Keyword Planner the best place, or are there other places that you look as well for ideas?
No, I mean, look, one of the things that I try to do is also do a market analysis. And you can actually search and find out what are other creators, what I call them creators, but other attorneys in your niche, what are they doing, right? Because you want to see what's working. I don't want to just throw spaghetti on the wall and hope it sticks, right? You want to have a pretty good idea of what is the viewer, who is your viewer. It's like the ultimate rule of marketing, which is know your audience.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to know what people want to watch. And you got to also know what is my viewer avatar and my customer avatar. I want to make sure I'm creating content that my viewers want to watch, but also align with my potential customer. And so one of the things that I'll do is I can look for other attorneys. I look to see what are other attorneys in maybe a different market creating content about that I can tell is pretty niche, covering practice areas that I make money on, and what are they doing and framing it to attract views, but then also what appears to attract clients. You can tell, like, look at videos that have questions. You'll see people saying things like, man, I wish you practiced in North Texas, or I wish you practiced in California, or
Yeah.
hey, tell me more about self-defense under an aggravated assault scenario. These are people that are going through real situations now. And I like to look at what's working for them. And because a big part of YouTube is framing your content. You've got to frame it in a way that attracts people, but then also attracts from a search perspective, ranks you for search, SEO perspective. So back to your original question is, I look for other creators. What are they doing? Well, that's working. Yes, I look to the keyword planner, and that's where I call my narrow content strategy, which means at the beginning, I want to create a lot of practice area videos. And when I say practice area videos that are specific to solutions I provide as a business, because I don't want to create a YouTube channel just to become famous, right? That's not the goal. The goal is to become wealthy for my firm. I want to make money. I want to create revenues. And those are very different goals.
Yeah.
And that's why I try to tell every attorney, don't necessarily even compare yourself to my situation right now, because I only went broad and started creating broader content when I created over 100 practice area videos. I went deep. You're talking about the first 18 months of my content was essentially nothing but practice area videos that I knew would probably never get over 20,000 views over their lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting too, like you mentioned avatar, and I want to go back to that because that's actually so important, because when you think about it, not only is the practice area important, right? But it's also the type of person that you want to attract. So I'll give you an example. We have a client, he's a family law attorney, and he was creating tons of content about child custody and about spousal support and about things like that. But he was attracting really not the right type of people. Most of the people that were contacting him, they were just looking for free advice, and they didn't have enough money to hire him. It was people that were making, had $30,000 annual household income. And he was trying to get those high net worth divorce cases, right? And so what we did is we actually adjusted his content to talk about things that rich people care about. Like, what do you do with vacation homes, and how do you do international travel with kids? And who breaks up, how do you break up stock portfolios and things like stuff that people that are making $30,000 a year, no offense, they don't care about. They don't have those problems, right? So do you give any thought to your avatar as well in terms of not only what do they care about, but like, what do I not want to talk about specifically so that I'm not attracting the wrong people?
That is a great point, particularly on my second channel, because I have another channel for my nationwide asset protection law firm that we only create content on there for the most part related to very niche, wealthier. I call them, my avatars, Wealthy Wendy. And Wealthy Wendy, when I look at my camera, I see Wealthy Wendy behind the camera, and I'm talking to Wealthy Wendy. In other words, there's certain things Wealthy Wendy cares about. Wealthy Wendy is interested in, she owns on average 2 to 3 short-term rentals, 2 Airbnbs, 2 to 3 Airbnbs. She's got a sizable stock portfolio, at least $1 million plus. She's probably got 2 to 3 kids. Like, I'm actually laying out what I expect that this particular person would be. Yeah. And then I'm talking about content areas like, what if you're a multi-state real estate investor? Well, that will exclude some people. That's not going to include, but the people I do talk to, those people show up with money that they've already used to spending. They've opened up their wallet and they're used to investing in things. And so when they come to us to work for asset protection, we provide a white glove, high touch point service. And as a part of that, that's why that channel, which doesn't even have 6,000 subscribers, that makes us an extra 40 to 50,000 a month. And it's because we're only speaking the language of the avatar that we know we're trying to reach. And that's okay. We're not everything to everyone, because if we are, we're nothing, essentially. So I agree completely. That's exactly what I've done for my STR Law Guys channel, by speaking that. And it's important. I think it's one of the biggest mistakes.
Well, real quick, what is STR?
So STR stands for short-term rental.
Oh, okay.
So short-term rental Law Guys is the name of the business, but it's under my name, Jeff Hampton, or STR Law Guys is the YouTube channel. That the content is very specific for asset protection. It's so niche. Some of my videos, for example, I had a video about creating multi-state asset protection with holding companies, only got about 500 or 600 views, but we signed up like 5 clients from it in the first 60 days after it launched.
Yeah.
And that was like $100,000 worth of service.
Yeah. It's funny in copywriting, they always talk about, the more specific you can be, the more you're going to repel everyone away. But the people that you're speaking directly to, you're going to, it fits like a glove. There's the classic example is the one-legged, one-eye, left-handed golfer, right? So you're writing that specifically for one-eye, one-leg, left-handed golfers. Most people are not going to fall, but you find that one guy and that guy's buying whatever the heck you're selling, So, yeah. So, okay, cool. So avatar is super, super important. Now you've got the idea, you've got the thing dialed in, right? But then a very common mistake that I see all the time, and I even struggle with this. I mean, we talked and you were even giving me tips last time we were hanging out in Tampa, is basically how do you capture someone's attention? Because having a great idea is great, but everyone also has the attention span of a goldfish nowadays, right? In a swipe up economy, how do you capture their attention? Because you could have the best idea in the world, but if you don't get them to click and if you don't get them to watch those two specific things, even if you get them to click, but you don't get them to watch, you're not going to have any success. So can you walk me through your process in terms of, let's start with title and thumbnail first, and then let's go into how do you actually get them engaged in the video so that they watch more than 5 seconds?
Yeah, so you're right. Look, the biggest part that I see, especially in the legal community that I see on YouTube that people neglect, is they put all this time and effort into their videos, which is great. You want to have great content. And then they give just an afterthought to their thumbnail and their title. They're like, okay, everything's ready to go. Upload the video. What do you think? Title should be blah. And then they just throw together a thumbnail of their picture in a suit with the title being this, or the thumbnail wording being the same as the title. And then they wonder why the video doesn't perform well. Okay. And so there's really 2 parts. When you first start, and I'll be real clear about this, when you first start, the goal is not so much to optimize for the algorithm. The goal is to optimize for search, which means when you dial in what your keywords are for search, you want to make sure you use them in the title, in your descriptions, in the tags of the YouTube Studio section, which you can kind of dig into and you can find as you start looking through your channel. And then your thumbnail needs to be something that there's 3 rules to a thumbnail. 3, I'm gonna give some tactical stuff here just for people to know what to do. What are the 3 C's? You want it to be clear, right? In other words, don't put a bunch of stuff all over if it's too cluttered and people can't understand what's going on. If it's not clear, then people aren't gonna click. Confusion equals scroll away, right? If it's clear, they'll click. It needs to also be colorful. So if you're in a black suit, your background is black, and you can't hardly can't see much on there, it's blending in with all the other thumbnails that are out there, you're not going to get the click. Your click-through rate's going to be way less. And so it needs to be clear, it needs to be colorful, and then it needs to also induce curiosity. Okay. So on the thumbnail, it's got to make people curious. Like, what's that? What does that mean? Or, ooh, what's going to happen next? That sort of thing. So think of it this way. You look at the thumbnail. The thumbnail creates that curiosity. Then what do? You look down at the title. So you'll see the thumbnail first because it's the biggest thing you see. Then you see the title. The title should lead someone to complement what you see on the thumbnail so that they'll click, right? And so what I see a lot of people doing is they'll make a cluttered thumbnail, or they'll just put themselves in a suit and they don't put the viewer in the action. So what's really important, if you go check out Hampton Law and you look at a few of my top videos that have gotten in the millions of views, one of the things you'll notice is it puts the viewer in the action of what they're about to watch. So if they see something, it induces this kind of emotion where they're like, oh man, if I was in that spot, what would I do? That's interesting. Let's click. But when you just have somebody in a suit, I'm not saying all this is bad. I'm just saying as a general rule, when you have somebody in a suit and it looks kind of like a commercial and the wording on the thumbnail is the same as your title, that doesn't create a lot of curiosity. So you're going to have a sub 2% click-through rate, and it's going to minimize the reach that you'll get on YouTube. So that's number one. And I want to make sure and make that real clear. Thumbnails are one of the most difficult areas that people have a hard time acclimating to, and they don't spend a lot of time on. I now spend, and check this out, I spend 50% of my time on a video on the thumbnail and title.
Wow.
50%. And some creators, because I've learned a lot of this from other people like Patty Galloway and some of these other guys like Daryl Eves, some of those guys will spend even more time than that. You'll see MrBeast will spend 60 to 70% of his time on his titles and thumbnails, even as it relates to, he'll have focus groups of hundreds of people looking at thumbnails in order to determine which is the best one. Because if you don't earn the click, no one ever sees your great content.
Yeah, okay. If you look at MrBeast thumbnails, I mean, they're so colorful and it's crazy. It's absolutely right. And as humans, we just get, it's like shiny objects. I mean, we are attracted. Our eyes naturally go to things with just lots of colors. I think there's something in evolution in our brains where we basically, as humans, we have evolved to make colorful things stand out and get attention. So go on. You're giving some gold here.
No, yeah. So, and that's so important because you got to remember you're competing against all of other YouTube that's out there. Mm-hmm. And so if you just blend in with the tapestry of other thumbnails that are out there on the homepage or on somebody's phone, you're just going to keep scrolling. So that's critical. Now, let me cover what you talked about at the very beginning of the video, because even if you earn the click, if you don't grab someone's attention in the first 30 seconds of the video, they're going to just scroll away. I mean, we've all done this, right? You'll just be like, oh man, come on, move on to the next thing. You just scroll out to the next video. So here's what's key. Some of the biggest mistakes I find that lawyers make is, number one, they'll do a big wind up. So they'll say something like, this amazing looking, like graphic visual, like, Hampton Law, this thing that comes all over the screen, looks all beautiful. They spend all this money on something. And that takes up the first 5 seconds of the video. People are like, oh God, this looks like another commercial. I'm out. Right? They're just not going to watch it. They don't care about your graphic. Or you'll see attorneys do something like this. Hey, welcome back to Hampton Law. Listen, it's good to see everybody again. Please do me a favor. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Like this video if you haven't liked the video, and share it with your friends. You haven't even talked about anything yet, right? Why would you ask someone to do anything if you haven't given any value? So the first thing you should do right out of the gate, in my opinion, is hook them. And the hook is the first sentence that comes out of your mouth. Grab a hold of it with curiosity, right? You want them to know what you're going to say in the first sentence is the one thing that makes people lean in and go, what? And then they want to hear the next sentence that you're going to say. The next sentence I like to do is, after I've hooked the viewer with a comment, with a statement, I want to set the stakes for the viewer. In other words, I need to let the viewer understand, I just hooked you with this great information, but here's how it applies to you, right? So this is really good to know. But if you don't know this is what it'll cost you, right? So the goal is to do this, to help the viewer know that if they don't watch this, they'll lose out more by what they don't learn than the time that they're going to invest in your video, right? That's sentence number 2. Then sentence number 3 is to be very clear what you're going to deliver on. And what I mean by that is, we'll say, in this video, I'm going to cover what to do if a cop comes to your front door. Is it legal for him to break down your door? And number 3, if he does, how do you stand up for your rights and protect yourself in this situation? Well, that's an example of, now I've laid that out. You're 10 times more likely to watch now because I have signposted, I have foreshadowed what you're going to learn, and it's very clear what the payoff is. And so once you know what that payoff is, you're psychologically much more likely to watch longer into the video. And here's the magic of that. When you do that in the first 30 seconds and you get kind of good at doing this and you really work on your hook, it sends a good signal to the algorithm as well that this is higher quality content. Because so many attorneys, when I evaluate their channel, their first 30 seconds starts off at 100% watching, and by the time you get to the 32nd, it's like 30. 40%. But imagine instead of it going from 100 to 30, what if it went from 100 to 75? Well, all of a sudden you're sending the signal to the algorithm. This is quality content. These people like this, right? They're sticking around for the content. So this is what's key to do on that. By using a hook at the very beginning, you're grabbing people. And think about it. Think about how many videos you've watched. Do you really want to wait around till the end of the first minute to find out what this is all about? Like if you shuffle the deck and you're sitting there shuffling the deck and you're not drawing the card, you're not actually putting out the cards. After a while, you're just like, I'm getting up from this table. This is taking too long. And that's exactly the mistake that most people make at the beginning of their video.
Yeah. And the other thing, it's kind of, you always want to, what I found it works best for me, and is when you tell them what to expect. Right. You kind of tell them this is what's going to happen here. This is what happened here. This is why I think Listicles work so well, because they know that there's going to be 5 elements. So if it's 5 ways to make your YouTube videos go viral, they know that there's going to be 5 things that are coming. And sometimes you can hint at what they are, or sometimes just even knowing that there's going to be 5 specific things is enough. But what do you do to continue to engage as you're going through the video? Because a great intro is good, but obviously if it gets boring after that, they're probably not going to watch the whole thing. So what do you do to continue keeping their attention?
Yeah, one thing to do, and this sounds super simple, but I find so many people that just don't do it. One of the things to do is when you create a listicle, actually look at the 5 things you're mentioning. Of those 5, what is truly one of the most interesting one of those 5? Put that first. Because if you wait, here's the mistake some people make, is they wait to give the most interesting thing till the very end. Most people aren't going to wait around to the end. So what you want to do is give them a great hook, grab a hold of them, and then give them one of the most enticing things at the very beginning. Maybe save one of the other ones, the second or third one that's the best, most enticing, to the end, and foreshadow it. Yeah. You can even do that in your hook and say, stick around to the end, because at the end, I'm going to show you an example of someone who, whatever. And that way people know what they're going to look for. And then here's the other thing. There's some good transitional, you can learn this from script writing, even screenwriters for movies. They're really good at being able to create transitions between themes of a movie, right? You can do that with listicles too. And one of the things you want to do is say, now we just covered this, but what happens if this were to happen? That brings me to point number 2. So every time you want to say and, don't say and, say but. Right? Yeah. Because when you say and, people are like, oh, another thing, and this, and that's boring. But when you, instead of saying and, you say but, people lean in like, but what? Right? So when you do this as a transition between each point, between each listicle, like let's say you got 5 points, it transitions someone into the next thing, and they don't even feel like they've been shuffled to the next point. They feel like it's a continuation of something they need to keep learning. That's what I've found. So put your most interesting thing, number 1, foreshadow to the last thing and make it one of your top thing, maybe not number 1, but number 2 or so. And then use these transitions. Every time you want to say and, say but, and lean in on it. Let them know the connection between each point. And that's one of the kind of simple ways to improve your scripting.
Yeah, it's funny. That reminds me of something that I heard the writers of South Park, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, they were talking about how somebody asked them a question like Comic-Con. They were like, how do you write such great stories? And they said it's actually really, really easy. You read your story, and if anywhere in the story it says you can insert and then, like, you're screwed, right? It's got to be therefore. So for example, like I left my house to go to work. I got in my car and then I drove to work. Like that's boring, right? So the better it would be, I left my house, I got in my car, but my car wouldn't start. Therefore, I had to get up and go find a bus, or you know what I mean? So it's like, it makes it a much more engaging story. And not only that, it's not a final part, because it creates that open loop that people are like, oh, what happens next, right? So if you can frame your things in a way, then that number 2 naturally is the therefore, so if you did that and you can make that work. I found that works really well with a lot of my stories, especially in sales presentations and things like that. It's a great point that I think a lot of people don't know. Okay, so let me ask you a couple questions. So click-through rates and watch rates. What are the typical metrics that you're like, what are your milestones? Like what's a good click-through rate on a thumbnail for you? And what's a good watch rate for you that you're happy with?
Yeah. So, I mean, just talk about click-through rate for a second. It's a little deceptive. So when you look at click-through rates, I'm looking at impressions, click-through rate, and average view duration. Those are the top 3 metrics that I'm looking at when I launch a video. Now, there's other things. After a while, you can also look at the average percentage viewed. You can look at what percentage of the video someone actually watched. But especially in the first day when I launch a video, those are really important to me. The reason why is this: if you don't get a lot of impressions, you can have a high click-through rate. But if you get a lot of impressions, in other words, if it's being seen by a lot of people, your click-through rate is going to be less. It's just going to go down, just because it's all about the metrics kind of work together, right? So one of the things I'm looking for, and I know I'm a little manic about this, but one of the things that I do is I will literally track what my average impression counts are at certain hours and days after launching a video, so you can actually know, is the video performing well? Is it not performing well? Same thing with click-through rates. When I launch my videos, I look at hour 1, but I get a lot of impressions. So I might get, let's say, 50 to 100,000 impressions in hour 1. I'm looking for at least a 10% click-through rate. My viral videos that have gotten 6, 7 million views, those have had anywhere between a 15 to 20% click-through rate in hour 1. So as a general rule, the higher your click-through rate is, then you're seeing your thumbnails doing pretty well, right? Mm-hmm. Like, ooh, wow, it's grabbing people's attention. They're clicking. What if your impressions are low? Now this can, it's kind of like it's not giving legal advice, right? It can vary per video, it can vary per person. But generally speaking, if your impressions are low, you have to watch out for your title. Maybe your title's a little off. Maybe it's not in alignment with your thumbnail. So I'll give you an example. One of my videos that went viral, started off hour 1 at 18.9% click-through rate. Hour 2 dropped down to 12. And by hour 4, it was down to like 6. But the reason why is because I'd already had 2 million impressions.
Oh, wow.
Right. So when you get a lot of impressions, that's good. You want the impressions to keep going. What you don't want to do is see the flat line. You don't want to see a flat line on impressions. You can have videos with high click-through rates, but if it's not being shown to people, it won't matter as much. So if for new lawyers, let's make it more specific for new lawyers. So let's say you're out there putting out new content. I would try to track for getting at least a 5 to 7% click-through rate if you can on your thumbnails. Getting to that 10% range, you got to really kind of know your audience. And sometimes the search-based content, it may not have the same level of click-through rate because your titles are going to be more optimized for search. So where you'll find problems, though, is if you go look in YouTube Studio, and most attorneys don't even know how to read YouTube Studio, but if you go in there and you look at it, some of your videos might be at like 1% or 1.5% click-through rate. You can use the testing feature on YouTube. Throw that thing out. Get that current thumbnail you have out of there. You have nothing to lose. Make changes to it and change it up a little bit. I've literally revived videos that had looked like they were dead and sitting there for even up to a year. And you start to see the jump where they start going back up again when you change out your titles and your thumbnails.
What's funny that I just did recently, and I don't know why I've never done this before. What I did is I went into my YouTube Studio page and I went into an individual video and I went into the analytics and I took a screenshot of the analytics that showed how much of the video was watched, because YouTube will actually show you, for anybody that doesn't know, YouTube will show you the viewer duration. So you'll see at 30 seconds, you had X% of people still watching, right? And then what I did is there was another one that there's another tab called engagement that shows you what is your click-through rate, how many impressions did you get, all that type of stuff. And it shows you over a period of time. So I took a screenshot of that and I uploaded both of those into ChatGPT, just the screenshot. And I said, pretend you're a YouTube expert, give me advice on what you should do here. And it gave me really good advice. And actually what I ended up doing is I hired a virtual assistant to go through every single video on my channel. And this is a different channel, it was like 300 videos. And I took all of the output and then I put it all into one, and I dumped all of that into another ChatGPT chat. And I was like, all right, these are the results of all of my channels. Overall, what do I need to do, right? And it basically, it gave me an amazing guide, and actually even said, these 7 videos right here have really good watch rates, but the click-through rate is trash. So you can actually revive these videos probably if you have a better thumbnail and a better title. So you should try. Don't do anything. You should just try launching different thumbnails, different titles for these videos. And then there's other ones that were like, this title, this thumbnail are fantastic. You have a huge click-through rate, but people are watching for 7 seconds. So you obviously got them in there, but the video was terrible. So don't change the thumbnail, don't change the title, just redo the video. And it was eye-opening. And I'm going to start doing that for every single video I put out, so I can do kind of like a post-mortem and be like, hey, what happened with this video? Tell me, what would you improve next time? Because I heard this thing from Mr. Beast. He always says, people ask him, they ask him for advice, and he gives the same advice. Do 100 videos, and every single video, just try to find one thing to improve each time. And that's great advice, but it's always like, well, yeah, but I don't know what to improve, right? But if you do that, you can do that now. You can launch a video, you can use AI, you can use ChatGPT, just upload all the stats and be like, all right, what should I try to improve in this video based on the actual raw data that you're seeing? It's really, really cool. So, okay, so we know click-through rate. What about average view duration? What's your goal there, especially in the first 30 seconds? Because I believe that that's probably the most important, but I want to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, so you talked about the graph, so if you go into YouTube Studio, it'll show you the graph, and it'll actually show you the retention of where people started to drop off. And you'll even see kind of blips where sometimes it'll go down and you'll see it go back up. You'll almost kind of see where it'll do some of this, especially on listicle videos, where you'll see people will kind of sometimes fast forward through the last part of what you're going to say to get to the next point. It's good to see that, because here's why. Generally speaking, average view duration shows on average how far people are watching into the video. And really, the percentage viewed is really important, because it shows how long are people watching this. And you just identified something. Like, I did a video that I was super disappointed in recently. I thought people would love it. It's a little bit more of an experimental video, but it came back and my average view duration was like 40% lower than normal. And what did that teach me? Well, it's all about learning, right? I need to go back once I see a low average view duration. That means people aren't watching as long, something they didn't like as much generally. I need to now go to the graph and take a look at that graph, the retention graph, and say, where did they drop off? And you can literally watch your own video and follow the graph. The graph will show you where people are dropping off. It's like in real time where you see people are losing interest. And I've literally gone back, watched those sections again. Did I not cover something in my scripting that I should have? Did I kind of go down a rabbit trail? Did I not get to the point quick enough? You can learn from those lessons from that. But to me, it will also show you, if I've had videos that have like a 60% watch time, right? Like 60% of the video they'll watch all the way through. I know that's red meat. My viewers are like all over that. They think it's the best thing ever. And then other ones aren't. It'll help you understand what you can go back to the well covering certain topics that your viewers really like. Because you want to create what I call like content silos or buckets, where you want to go back and know, if you talk about search, if I talk about police encounters on a traffic stop, these are areas I know that if I go back and talk about, that they're going to really enjoy. So when you talk about average view duration, YouTube cares about two things: predicting what you want to watch, because they want to know what you're going to watch so they can serve you up more content, and keeping you on the channel, on the platform. And so when you get longer content, longer average view duration, YouTube sees that as a positive, and it's going to continue to help find viewers for content that people stick on YouTube.
Yeah, I guess average view duration is also going to be relative to the length of the video. If your video is 2 minutes long, if you have an hour-long video, a great performing video, even a great performing video is probably going to have like a 35% average view duration, unless compared to a 2-minute video, which really should have a higher one. So,
great point.
Yeah. So speaking of that, how long are your videos typically? Do you actually set a time like that you try to strive for, or are they just as long as they end up being?
Yeah. So, and I've experimented with all kinds of lengths on this. So I want to preface this by saying, I know my viewer, right? So I know my viewers. I have to be careful saying what kind of, your viewer might be a little bit different in terms of what they prefer. But a lot of the viewers that I'm serving up content for right now really like the longer form content. Let me give you an example. YouTube TV is growing leaps and bounds. And I've had some videos that recently have gone out that have had more than 45% of their views come from YouTube TV, but my videos normally run between 15 and 25 minutes long. Now, when I started, that wasn't the case. Okay. When I started, I try to tell clients, try to do at least a 5 to 10 minute long video, right? If you do less than 3 minutes, it's going to be categorized as a short. So you want to make sure you're doing at least 5+ minutes, in my opinion, to build trust. What's the purpose of a longer video? The purpose of a longer video is for me to give more value. it's not just to drag it out to infinity and bore people to death. If I run out of things that I need to say that are valuable, then I need to stop the video. Right? That's my viewpoint, because I don't want to just make it artificially long for the sake of making it long. I want to provide overwhelming value to the viewer. And if it happens to run in that range, it's kind of weird. You kind of get in a cadence. Now for me, I can just like talk about, I cover a script of an area, and it's usually 15 to 25 minutes. It's almost like it gets into a sweet spot that you get comfortable about a length that you're providing to the viewer. And the viewer has now learned that's about how long my views are, or my videos are. And so it becomes this show. It's fun. It's kind of funny. People call me, I love your show, is what they call me, which is, I thought it was very bizarre until I realized 40% of them are watching it on TV.
Yeah.
And that YouTube, here's the key. And I know I mentioned this to you before when down in Florida when I was there, is, YouTube TV is taking over regular television, cable television. That's in the past. That's legacy media that's dying. And what you're finding now is people in droves watching a lot of their content in any capacity now on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's crazy. Okay. So let's talk about, because I always get this question, and I'm sure you do too. Talk about the production process. How often do you film videos? How do you film your videos? Do you have a team? Is it just you? Like, tell me about kind of the whole production process.
So yeah, I mean, I have thumbnail designers. I have several editors, and I do have someone that helps me a little bit with the research side of things, just making sure that's getting, and that's only recent. In the past, man, for the last 4 years, I was doing all the researching and all of that on that end, plus the actual scripting. But here's what you do when you're starting. When you first start, please try to batch record your videos. And what I encourage you to do is don't make this too complicated, because if you get too overwhelmed with this, you'll quit. The number one reason lawyers don't do well on YouTube is they just quit. They just quit creating content. So one of the things to do is treat it at the beginning when you're creating these, what I call narrow videos about your practice areas, treat it like a consultation. Okay. You treat it like a consultation. You're looking right into the camera. You're giving overwhelming value to the viewer. Treat it like you're talking to your cousin or your uncle who just got arrested or needs asset protection or whatever it is that you provide, and just give away all the secrets. And when you do that and you treat it like a consultation, that becomes easy because you're used to doing those, most likely, if you're an attorney, and do a lot of those to get started and get comfortable in front of the camera. You don't have to create some MrBeast-like production. But for me now, I like to batch record a month's worth of content in one setting, if I can. Because if you can sit down and create 4 long-form videos, scripts, or outlines as an attorney, and then record them at once, you don't feel like it's this big burden hanging over your neck every week to create a new video over and over and over again, because sometimes people will feel like that's too much work and they'll quit. So that's why I tell people that's what's worked for me. And I know I talked to Legal Eagle and some of the things he does as well. He has a huge, talking to him, he's got a huge production or team that works with him. And now he's to the point, he literally sits down, even if you're using even if you're needing to make sure, and what is it? If you're using aids to assist you while you're trying to do this, it just slipped my mind. I have one
teleprompter.
Teleprompter. My mind went blank. I've got one sitting right over here that I don't use. If you need to use a teleprompter, then it's okay. You just need to get the content out, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Keep it authentic. The key is if you start sounding artificial or you act like, you're insecure about it, people can tell. They can tell by what you're doing. So that's one of the things I try to encourage people to do, is to batch record it. Batch record your content.
And the other thing is that, like, I found that for me particular, and maybe you can relate to this, I found that the more obstacles that I put in the way of recording, the less likely I am to record. So what that means is that a lot of times people want to set up, a green screen, and they want to set up fancy lighting, the fancy equipment, all that type of stuff. And I have all those things, but I built my office in a way that, because video is such an important part of what I do, that it's I have a light right here. You can't see it. It's right over there. That's permanently mounted to my desk. I've got my DSLR camera right there. We were just talking about before we get on here, we use OBS. So my webcam is also my camera that I use. I've got a teleprompter right here. That's how I'm looking at you and also looking at my notes. And so like, my studio is set up perfectly for this, right? And it's not hard to do. I mean, I basically built this by watching some YouTube videos of how to do this stuff, right? But the other option is like find a college kid. Like it's funny. I just recently talked to Dan Martell, who's got millions of followers, and he gave me that. He's like, just go find like a college kid, just call a film school and be like, hey, who's your best star that's looking for some side work, or just put a post up somewhere. I put a post up in my neighborhood Facebook group that said like, hey, I'm looking for somebody to help me film some videos. I want you to set up the gear. I want you to film it. I want you to break it down, and I want you to edit for me, so that all I have to do is just go sit down and film, because all the other stuff that you put in the way, all the other obstacles, just makes it so much less likely that you're actually going to do it. And I've experienced that, because I know myself, if I have to set up gear every time and have to set all this stuff up, I just won't do it. So you've got to put yourself in a position to win.
So good.
Yeah. And do you have your setup? I mean, I'm assuming your setup is permanent. How's your setup?
Yeah, man, I completely agree with that, because a lot of times I'll talk to attorneys, and when they want me to consult with them, and they'll say, well, Jeff, do I need to go get like, this crew that I have come in and do all this stuff? And they want to spend like thousands of dollars on videography crews that come in and do it. I go, well, look, the problem with that is you're scheduling it. It overwhelms you with other things that you've got going on within your practice. Create your main studio that you can sit down and you can block off some time and get it done. What you see right now is what you described. I've got a light over here. I've got a soft light in front of me. I've got everything set up here on the back, and my main camera. Literally, this is a separate little office that I just go from my other office right into here, and I can record and do whatever I want whenever I need to. Yeah. If I didn't have that, I guarantee you I would find it more difficult for me to put this in my schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. Even my background, like everything in my background here is intentionally set up to look like a nice background, so that when I film, like, I've got this blue light here. I've got that light right there, the Christmas lights over there, like all that stuff. It's all intentional, right? It's all there so that all I have to do is click 3 buttons and I'm able to film a video, because I know myself. I know if I don't make it as easy as possible and remove all friction, I just won't do it. And that's somebody who's filmed thousands of videos, like that doesn't go away,
So important. These are the things people don't think about sometimes, but they also use them as an excuse not to record.
Yeah.
Just got to remove those excuses.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So what about editing? Do you do your own editing? Do you have somebody else who edits for you? How does that work?
Oh, no, I do not do my own editing. And a lot of attorneys that I talk to, they'll want to sit down and learn that. I try to encourage them. Don't, like, if at all possible, don't do it. Like you can find an editor, and look, when you first start, it doesn't have to be top shelf editing, whether it's on Upwork, whether you go to, you name it, Fiverr, you can go to so many places and get a basic editor that can do captions and just cut out the fluff of when you mess up and do those things, and they can tie those things together for you. Is so important, because if you want to sit down and try to learn how to do CapCut and all this other stuff, or figure out the basics on editing, you're no longer a lawyer. You're now an editor. You're going to hate it. At least for me, that's my personality. And so I knew right away I had to create leverage. If I did not create leverage by having a thumbnail designer, by having someone who's going to do my editing from the very beginning, when I was making no money on any of these videos, I found a basic editor. I paid him $50 a video. Right. And I was willing to do that because I saw it as an investment in a video that was going to be evergreen and make me money for years to come. If you do that, you can create more content at the beginning, because you're not having to spend overtime figuring out how to edit. And number 2, hopefully you're going to work with someone who can get that done sooner for you, so you can just spend your time recording. You're the expert as a lawyer. Spend your time doing what you do, which is, the knowledge that you can share with people. When you spend your time doing something you don't know how to do, which is editing, it's taking away from your unique ability and creating that leverage.
Yeah, exactly. I always say that I get paid to think and everyone else gets paid to do the work, right? So the one thing that cannot be replicated, now come back in a year with AI avatars and things, and this may not be true anymore. The one thing that nobody else can do is get on camera and talk like me and be me and or be you, right? Every single thing else can be done by somebody else, and should be done by somebody else, right? Because the most valuable thing I can do is things that involve my brain and my likeness, right? Like the things that are 100% unique to me. Everything else can be done by somebody else, right? And sometimes I actually enjoy editing, so sometimes I'll edit just because I like doing it, but never because it's never a good idea for me to edit. There's always something better I could be doing. It's just sometimes I sometimes do things I like doing, right? So
sure.
All right, so we're wrapping up here. This has been awesome. I mean, honestly, you've given enough information here that anybody really could go out and start a successful YouTube channel. And the other thing also is like I think that a lot of times people are, like they hear your numbers, right? They hear 200 and what did I say, 250 million views almost, and 500,000 subscribers, and they almost get intimidated, right? But the truth is, if you look at my YouTube channel, for example, I've got 12,000 subscribers. I think I'm almost at 13,000, right? But nowhere near, like you probably got more subscribers this month than I've gotten in 5 years of doing it or 6 years of doing it. But it's a quality issue as well. It's a quality thing as well. Just like you said with your estate planning thing. My channel has almost 13,000 lawyers. These are my dream clients, right? And using a 13,000 channel, Bill and I have grown a multi 8-figure business. You know what I mean? So it's not always about the vanity metric. And the truth is, and I'll say this also, there's a lot of people with a lot of followers that are broke. And I know because they reach out to me and they say, hey, how do you grow your business with, so, like there's a lot of people, I've talked to some pretty famous people that come to me and be like, hey, I need help making some actual money with all of these followers. It's pretty insane. So my last question I'm going to leave you with is, what's the one tip that you would give somebody that, just kind of like summed all in one? What's that one piece of advice somebody's trying to start a YouTube channel that you could only tell them one thing? What would that be?
Well, I mean, the simple one I always tell people is to, people are afraid how they're going to look and how they're going to come across. Don't be worried. I mean, like the imposter syndrome thing, you're an expert already because you're a lawyer. You start pushing record. You don't have to have a big team, and don't be afraid to be proud of what you offer as a service. Because here's the thing, and you just really nailed it right there with what you just said, which is important to know. There's a lot of people on TikTok and Instagram that have millions of followers that make no money, I mean, very little money at all. But as a lawyer, you have a service that people need, and you need to do some very simple things. Put a trackable number on your screen to let people know how to reach you. Put something on the description section to let people know that they can work with you. When you get to the end of the video, not only can you foreshadow the next video about their learning journey, but let them know if they're in your area that feel free to reach out. There's nothing wrong with that, but wait and deliver the value first. And the number one thing I'll tell you is this: don't hold anything back. There's this temptation in law for some reason that people think, well, I'm only going to give away certain information and I'm going to put everything else behind a paywall, right? In other words, whenever they hire me, I'll tell them the really good stuff. No. YouTube's all about building trust.
Yeah.
And the number one way to build trust, and I think, Alex Hormozy said this, you give away the secrets, you sell your implementation. If you're going to do that in law, so very few people do that. If you get out there and you do that on YouTube, you won't have to worry about making money and monetizing your YouTube views. You might get less than 1,000 views, but you might make 10 or 15 or $20,000 on that because you're actually giving away what most lawyers won't share.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because like, it's actually a sorting method, because sometimes I talk to lawyers, I'm like, well, why wouldn't they just take everything I say and go do it themselves? And I'm like, well, okay, let's think about this for a second. If this is a client that is willing to watch a bunch of YouTube videos and then go do it themselves, like, do you want them as a client? Like, you don't want that client that walks in with the binder this big because they already Googled it, like it sounds like an absolute nightmare. You want somebody that watches your videos, says, okay, yeah, this guy clearly knows what he's talking about, and I'm just going to trust him to do it because this sounds really complicated. And I don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole, but he obviously knows. So let's just give him the money. Let's just pay him really well and let him handle the problem. And I'm going to stay out of it. Like that's and you get that level of trust by sharing all of your secrets. Like I mean, there's people that have contacted me. There's lawyers that have contacted me on my YouTube channel, and they have literally made 7 figures from advice that they've gotten from my YouTube channel. They've never paid me $1. They never will pay me $1, and I'm fine with that because there's enough lawyers out there that watch my stuff and pay me lots of dollars because they see that. And I tell lawyers all the time, like, you really don't ever have to hire me. You can just go watch my YouTube channel. And actually there's a guy who came to me one time. He's an immigration attorney in Texas. And he's like, he messaged me on Facebook. He's like, hey, I took the Andy Stickle challenge and I took my firm from 6 figures to 7 figures, or 6 figures to 7 figures in just 60 days. And I was like, that's insane. But like, what's the Andrew Stickle challenge? I never created that. So what he did is he went to my YouTube channel. He found 60 videos because my videos are all really tactical that show like how to actually do things. He found 60 videos that he thought would help them. And then every day he watched one video and then implemented. And the next day he watched another video, then he implemented, then another day he watched. And by the end of 60 days, his firm was on a 7-figure run rate just by doing that stuff, you know? And like anybody could do that. And and he's never, by the way, he's never paid me anything. I think maybe he bought a book from me or something like that. But the cool thing is that for every one like him, there's 5 others that call us and they say, hey, look, I see you clearly know what you're talking about. I don't have time to do this because I'm busy being a lawyer. I just want you to do my marketing for me. I just want you to help me with coaching, or I want you to help me with finances, or whatever it is that they need help with, you know? So yeah,
100%.
that's the number one thing. The number one way for this not to work is to not share the goods, you know, because people expect you to not hold anything back. And I think that that's actually a really big differentiator when you do that.
And the beautiful thing is, lawyers that do this now, particularly on YouTube, because YouTube, I think, is different than all the other platforms because it is long form based. Like you can grab so many people and build trust through YouTube as opposed to shorter form content. It's a little harder to do that. It creates awareness, but not maybe as much trust. If you start doing that on YouTube now and you give away those secrets, you'll create a moat between you and your competitors pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And I literally get calls from people that I've never met that referred their aunt or their uncle or their cousin to work with us because that guy tells everything. And I've had people want to, you know, hey, he shares everything on his YouTube channel. You need to go over to him. And it creates this compounding effect. So I encourage lawyers to get past that thought process because it'll hold them back.
Yeah. Yeah. And the last thing I'll say before we wrap up here, because I know you're busy, I appreciate your time, is that I heard a statistic about podcasting, and I really think this applies to content. It applies to everything, where basically if you look at anyone that says they're going to start a podcast, only 10% of those people will ever make it to episode 3 of the podcast, right? So if you have 100 people, 100 lawyers, and I think this applies to videos, I think this applies to everything, not just podcasting, right? So you have 100 lawyers in your market who say, I'm going to create videos, I'm going to create videos, I'm going to create videos, right? Only 10 of them are ever going to even create 3 videos, right? And then it gets even more interesting though, because they look at the ones that create the 10 of the 10% that actually created those 3 videos. Only 10% of them will get to episode 21. We'll get to video number 21, right? So that means that if you have 100 people, 100 lawyers in your market that say, I'm going to create video content, only one of them statistically is going to get to number 21. So I actually look at my life in batches of 21. So every time I do 21 videos, I know I'm now in the top 1%. And I do another 21. Okay, now I'm in the top 1% of the top 1%. And it just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going until nobody can touch you. Because human nature, if you use human nature and understand that most people won't, most people just won't do it. They'll just quit. And that's the biggest advantage you have. You don't have to be that good. You don't have to be that talented. You just have to not quit. You just have to be persistent, you know?
Man, so you know what you just outlined? To me, you outlined a universal growth principle that basically says, if you commit to the process, the results will follow.
Oh, yeah.
And because people get so focused, hyper-focused on immediate results, what they miss is the actual nugget that if you commit to that process, the results will take place. And why you see so many attorneys not doing that, you can get in the top 1% pretty quickly. Just keep going. Keep going. The fact
that it's hard, I think, is your biggest advantage, because if it was easy, everybody would do it and everybody have a YouTube channel and it wouldn't be special. But the fact that it's hard is what makes it great. So Jeff, 100%. Thank you so much for hanging out. This was absolutely amazing. Just amazing information. And I mean, honestly, anybody could take the information you gave and add 7 figures to their law firm by this time next year. So thank you so much for hanging out. I really appreciate it. And we will talk to you soon.
Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it.